Cool. Thank you, David. Right, my mic is now working. This is great. Apparently, I just get up here and talk to you about research, but I'm going to do that again for the second day running. As David introduced me, I'm the editor-in-chief here at LeadDev, and I'm up here today to talk to you about a piece of research that we did recently with our friends over at Harness. What we wanted to do was we really wanted to find out how and why organizations are deploying features and managing features and then experimenting with those features. We wanted to understand how they're feeling about those practices. So we went out and we surveyed 500 engineering leaders to see how they're experimenting with features, how they're managing them, and how they're doing all of that safely. And to go through some of the highlights of that piece of research that you can all hopefully access through this QR code and bit.ly link up on the screen today, I'm joined by PA. So PA, before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. Thanks for the introduction, David. I'm PA. I'm the VP of Engineering. I'm a VP of Engineering at Harness. I was at Split for many years, working on feature flag and experimentation, and we got acquired a few months ago by Harness. And we went through my resume already pretty extensively, but I worked on developer tools for many years, and prior to that I worked on application, services, infrastructure, and digital transformation quite a bit as well.
Nice, still settling in at Harness?
Yes, it's great over there.
Great, so we're going to dig into this piece of research. As I said, you can all access it now on leaddev.com if you want to dig in. We're just going to pick a few areas that kind of really stood out to us when we were going through it this week. First of all, PI, I always just like to ask, from your perspective, what surprised you the most when you started to look at the results?
Yeah, so when we looked at the results, the first thing that was really interesting to me is the evolution of adoption and seeing that 90% of the respondents basically use experimentation in one form or another. And that's a number that was quite an evolution from where it started, just a few years ago. And so we can see the maturation of the industry and the adoption of that. As we can see, not everybody is at the same level of maturity. It's a progression. But we can clearly see the trend and the evolution, and so that's really that's something I care a lot about, and I'm excited to see. But it's also a sign, when we see the different level of maturity, it's really a journey. It's a culture change in some aspects, and so it takes some time, and it's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot about kind of feature management myself through this process. We've been working with Harness to produce this report, and I kind of didn't really understand the levels of maturity until we started digging into it. I think when we did the research, we discovered that there was this kind of top 1% that you typically get with anything. You get it with DevOps in particular, on that maturity model of this is something that we've been doing for a long time, and it's now absolutely core to how we do all of our software development. We manage, we test, and we experiment with all of our features. It's kind of that small slither at the top. Then you had the middle class who were still figuring it out. And then you had this kind of 35% at the bottom, which are still doing things on an ad hoc basis. Do you want to just talk a little bit about what that actually means? Because I didn't know until we started this.
The ad hoc basis
the ad hoc
in particular?
Stuff, yeah.
The way I'm interpreted, I'm not a respondent, obviously. But what we see a lot of folks is they might put a feature out there and might look at some measurements, not necessarily statistically, in a statistical way, but maybe just seeing how different it looks like. So there might be a lot more eyeballing, a lot more manual effort, or you might basically put a data scientist to do a lot of the manual work of comparing things, but it's not a process that's easily repeatable. Yeah. And so it's really pointing at certain moment on the product, critical juncture, so that the company can make better choices.
Nice. And then were you surprised to see that 10% don't do anything?
No. Well, that's yesterday. I was at a talk. I think we still have a lot of COBOL out there. So I think 10% doesn't seem inadequate.
They're pretty well paid, those COBOL developers these days.
Yeah. I don't think they do much of experiment there.
I was really interested by this finding that optimization and safety are very clearly at the heart of feature management and experimentation, and I was surprised by the drop-off for speed. Like, I would have thought that like speed and would be up there with the optimization and safety element. What did you take away from this?
I think it's kind of illustrating the engineering psyche, as like in many ways. I mean, everybody here, I think, is more or less in engineering, or at least close by. And so
I'm the outlier.
You're the outlier. You're close enough. You're close enough. But I think we've all through our journeys have gone an experience of something that didn't work, something we got burnt on, and so like we learn. That was an experiment, I guess, in some fashion. But like when we get burnt, and I think like engineering, we take reliability and quality of service as our primary mandate very quickly. So initially it's like, hey, how can we go faster? And then basically I think as we mature, it's like, okay, how do I not break things? And then how do I move faster? So the order kind of evolve over time. And so seeing that safety and the risk mitigation is first is not surprising in that sense. I'd say the second aspect of it is with feature flags, it requires a little bit more effort. So on a feature level, you might not go faster.